7 brain hacks. Catchy title. You see this type of stuff on the internet all the time. But often it's through people who've read things and are just repeating it. These are brain hacks that Rob and I live out every single day. And they have made a huge difference to our lives. And if you follow these hacks, it will make a huge difference to you as well.
Welcome to the Property Podcast, where every Thursday morning, property investors come together to be informed and inspired. I am Rob D with Rob B, and like Rob's already said, today we are sharing some techniques that we've developed that we use every day that have radically improved our lives, and they could do the same for you. And as if that weren't enough, we've also got a great tool for you if you stick around to the end for Hub Extra.
So it's time for our news story now, and lo and behold, we finally have a positive headline. The headline reads, Property market bounce back, demand from buyers and sellers increases as Brexit fatigue fades, estate agents claim. Estate agents have been known to claim some things that may have not been quite true in the past, Rob, but is this one of the cases where we can trust what estate agents are claiming?
Well, it's based on self-reported data, so who really knows? But this is the National Association of Estate Agents, who have surveyed their members and found that there's been a 16% increase in the last month of new buyers registering with them, and there's been an increase in supply as well. And so it does actually seem like the market is coming back to life. And I just thought that it was an interesting kind of psychological point, because the common reason that's been given for everything being jammed up for such a long time is Brexit and uncertainty. And all that uncertainty is still there. Nothing has actually happened, but it's like everyone's got so fed up of talking about it and thinking about it that everyone's just moving on. And I've kind of observed this in conversations as well. It used to be that Brexit would come up every day, but now it doesn't really get mentioned anywhere near as much. So it's funny how, even though nothing has actually changed whatsoever, the reality is exactly as it was. People's opinions about it, and therefore their actions based on it, can change. So I think this is a good example of how, even if the underlying reality doesn't change, if people's opinions of it do change, then their actions will change. So it's a good reminder of why in all markets, but property being a prime example, sentiment is so important. So as well as looking at the facts and the economics and everything else, you have to be looking at what people are thinking to get clues about where the market's going to go next.
So Rob, if the property podcast coming out on a first day isn't enough, then people can really up their property indulgence by going along to one of our meetups tonight. Yes, it's meetup time. We've got some venues that have sold out, and that happens every month, but there may be a few places left at certain locations. So if you are keen, get along to propertyhub.net/meetups and book yourself a ticket. They're only £5, not a big profit scheme, it's just to cover costs. But what it does ensure is everybody who's there is serious, and do not worry, there is no selling. It's just full of friendly hubbers who talk about property. It's a great thing to do. So if you've not been along to one before and you've got nothing on tonight, come on, don't be lazy. Leave Netflix for one night and get along to a meetup.
And if that's still not enough education for you, make sure you check out our YouTube channel, where there's new things being added all the time. Recently, we put up a video about how to choose an accountant. Now, of course, we have Property Hub Tax. We happen to believe that they are the best property accountants around. But if you feel the need to look for alternatives, we in this video give you a whole set of criteria that you should be judging your accountant against. So you'll find that on YouTube. Just search Property Hub. Be warned. Next week on the podcast, we've got an episode that's a little bit heavier. We're normally pretty chirpy, but we don't deny that sometimes in property, times can be tough. We'll be talking about that next week, so make sure you don't miss that one. But we wanted to prepare you for that this week by sharing some techniques that we use to keep ourselves mentally where we want to be. There's a famous quote that nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And actually, you'll probably think that some things are objectively better and worse than others. But the way that you think about them, the way you perceive them, can make an enormous difference to the quality of your day-to-day life. So today we're going to be sharing 7 techniques that we actually use. Between us, we use every single one of these, and we've seen positive changes from them. So in there somewhere is bound to be at least one that you can pick out, start using for yourself, and really improve the quality of your thinking. So Rob, there's a lofty claim for a podcast episode: improve the quality of your thinking. Why don't you kick us off with the first one and see if we can live up to it?
Yeah, I think more than improve the quality of your thinking, it can actually improve the quality of your life, because your life is really played out in your head. So big claims, but we think this will make a big difference to you. First hack or trait that you can pick up is habit stacking. So the concept of habit stacking is a new one to me. Well, at least I didn't know that's what it was called. I had inadvertently been doing this, and I'll talk about an example of what I actually do already. But I came across the concept from an audiobook, and the audiobook is called Atomic Habits by James Clear, and I do recommend it. It's pretty short, easy to listen to, and I took a lot away from that book. So an extra little resource for you there. But one of the things I really liked about in that book is the concept of habit stacking. And it goes like this, that you will have habits that you follow every day. So it may be you get up, you go downstairs, you put the kettle on, you make a cup of tea, and you check your phone. So they're habits. Your habit is getting out of bed. Your next habit is making a cup of tea. And your habit after that is checking your phone. That is a habit stack. They are things that you do pretty regularly, almost every single day, and that doesn't change. You've stacked those habits on top of each other. Now, you can habit stack positive habits or negative habits, and it's up to you to decide, are your current habits positive or negative? Are they having a positive impact on your life or a negative one? Now, let's say that at the moment you are not in the habit of exercising and you want to. You could habit stack a different way. And it doesn't have to be a huge change. It could be something as simple as this. You get up, you put the kettle on, and your next habit is to do 30 push-ups while the kettle's boiling. And you do that every day. That you click the kettle on and you'll do 30 push-ups. Now, 30 push-ups, you're not going to get a six-pack, be ripped and lose tons of weight, but it's a positive habit. Something that you've not done before, but it's a positive step in the right direction. Another one would be that when you get home from work, instead of changing into comfy clothes and sitting in front of the TV, it could be you change into your running gear and you go for a run. You force yourself to put your running clothes on, which then hopefully will form the habit of you getting out the door and going for a run. But think about habits that you've already have and then how you can stack on top of them. Now, this book goes into loads of concepts, and possibly we can do a whole podcast around this book because I think there's so many great takeaways. But habit stacking for me is something that you can implement very quickly into your life because you already have a ton of habits that you're already operating with, that if you can stack some positive habits onto what you do already will make a huge difference. Now, I was doing this, but I didn't know it was called habit stacking. And if I'm honest, I was just doing it by accident. But one of the habits that I have, and I think has made a big difference to my life, is that when I wake up, before I pick up my phone or do anything else, I have to think of 3 things I'm grateful for. So I practice gratitude. I will think every single morning, whether it's midweek or weekends, doesn't matter. Before I do anything else after waking up, I will think about 3 things I'm grateful for. It might be family, it might be friends, it might be a situation I'm in, it might be that just the weather's great. It doesn't really matter. But that is a habit that I have. I wake up and then I list off in my head 3 things I'm grateful for. Which leads us into our second hack, which is practicing gratitude. Practicing gratitude is a great technique to change your mindset because when you're grateful for things, it's hard to be anything else. You know, if you're thinking, oh, I'm so grateful to have this person in my life or whatever it may be, if you're thinking that way, at that point, you are not going to be stressed, you're not going to be angry because you're thinking of very positive things. You're thinking of things you're grateful for. If you get in the habit of practicing gratitude, you will see changes in your life. Now, it doesn't mean you're going throughout the whole day practicing gratitude, but if you can get into a habit of doing it maybe in the morning like I do, or just before you go to bed, or wherever point in the day suits you, then it will make a difference. But it forms a habit for things that you're grateful for in your life more than just that period of time in a day. It becomes a mindset that you are just grateful for the things that you have in your life and that are going on right now. There are people who would love to be in your position. Every single person listening now, there is somebody worse off than you. You may have things going wrong in your life, but there's going to be someone in a grimmer, worse situation. So be grateful for what you do have. Because when you start to be grateful for what you do have, your mindset improves and therefore your life improves.
That's especially powerful because one of the main ideas of Stoic philosophy is that you should desire what you already have. So a lot of unhappiness comes from the gap between what you've got and what you want or what you think that you should have. So by practicing gratitude, you're focusing on what you do have and effectively saying, this is what I want. I'm glad that I have this. Therefore, you're putting more importance on what you've got now rather than what you don't have. You're closing that gap. So that is going to make you happier. So I can see why that's such a powerful technique. Another habit that's probably worth stacking if you can find a way of doing it is the habit of finding the positive in any situation. And this is something that I've developed over the last few years, which is really just a form of self-brainwashing. Because thought is a habit, whenever anything happens, you're going to have a pretty automatic reaction to that thing. So it could be you running for the train and the doors close just before you get there. And when that happens, you're going to have an automatic reaction to that, which could be anger or frustration or something like that. And that reaction happens before you have a chance to consciously form it. It's automatic. But what you can do is form a habit of, once that's happened, having your conscious mind jump in with its own reaction and finding the positive to that and go, well, this is great. I'm going to have an extra 3 minutes to read my book that I wouldn't have had. And maybe the next train that comes along is not going to be so packed and I'll have a nicer journey. When you start doing that, it feels really strange and really forced. But the interesting thing is, when you've been doing it for a little while, your automatic response will be the positive one. You'll start to find the positive in every situation without having to try. And so you've changed a very basic habit of thought. Now, the wonderful thing about this is reality doesn't have to change at all. You can have exactly the same events happen to you that would have happened before, but you'll have a far more positive reaction to them. Therefore, your perception of your day will be infinitely better just by developing this one habit that goes on to become automatic. And it might sound like that's crazy or impossible to do, but really, why is the reaction that you've already got the right one? Whatever automatic thoughts you have now is just the way that your brain's accidentally started working over time based on the inputs it's been given. So if you come up with some new inputs, there's no reason why you can't change that. And it's so easy to do, but makes such a huge outsized difference to your life.
Our next brain hack, number 4, is give yourself a reset. So yes, Rob and I practice all these things we're talking about today. And yes, absolutely, we can attribute it to our happiness and success of what we've had so far. But it doesn't all go well. And sometimes you need to give yourself a reset. It could be that you feel overwhelmed by a situation, or that you're just having a bad day. Yep, we have them too. It happens. But when you realise that you are feeling a bit low, you are feeling angry, moody, or frustrated by a situation, first, becoming aware of that is huge. That self-awareness will make a massive difference to your life. But then once you become aware of that situation, you've acknowledged your emotions or feelings at that point, then give yourself a reset if you need it. We do this in different ways. For me, I'll often go for a walk. If I've got a problem or something that's bugging me that I need to solve, or I just feel a bit overwhelmed, I'll often go for a walk. Even if it's just around the block, just a fast walk just to clear my head will make a big difference. Sometimes, meditation is a way of doing this as well. I find though, if I feel very overwhelmed by a situation and I've got strong emotions around it, I struggle to get into meditation. So if it's kind of a bit more mild for me, then I will meditate. But if it's something stronger, I'll walk. Another thing you can do is that if you're feeling tired and just lack energy, is a power nap. So if I'm on a train and I've got a lot of meetings that day, even if it's mid-morning or mid-afternoon, I might give myself 10 to 15 minutes for a power nap. Now, I am terrible at falling asleep in the day. So I use something called Fizz, which is P-Z-I-Z-Z, which is an app that really feels more like a meditation app, and you don't actually, I don't fall asleep, but after 10-15 minutes of this, I just feel mentally refreshed and ready to kick on with my day. And finally, the other thing you can try, and I do this sometimes as well, is if I need a lift, if I need an energy boost, maybe I've got to present or I've got to go into a social situation, I just don't have the energy for it, then music. Yep, puts in on upbeat tracks or wherever it does it for you that gets you in a more positive mindset. Works for most of us. It certainly works for me. So whatever you try, whether it's a walk, you could even run as well if you're feeling more energetic, meditating, little power naps or music. Find a way to reset yourself if you're not in a place you want to be mentally, whether that's if you're a bit tired, a bit sleepy, a bit grumpy, or something a bit more severe, whatever it may be. If by acknowledging it, realizing you're in that situation, and then finding a way to reset will make a huge difference.
Definitely. And like you say, it's recognizing it in the first place. It's often the hard part. So if you can spot it early, then you can just try these different things until you figure out what it is that works for you that can change that state. Brain hack number 5 is dedicated worry time, which doesn't sound very positive, but it's something that has actually worked really well for me. I'm prone to worrying about how situations will play out, about things that might happen, and I can often end up with lots of different things rattling around in my head about situations that are coming up, about situations that might come up, about things that I could have handled better in the past. All these worries bouncing around in a not very helpful way. So what I started to do was actually setting aside a couple of minutes to specifically worry about each of them in turn. So if I'm worried about, say, a difficult conversation I've got to have, rather than just letting it sit there in the back of my mind all day, I'll spend a couple of minutes deliberately thinking about it, going, okay, well, what am I worried about? What could happen? What's the worst thing that could happen? Will it be okay if that happens? And kind of asking myself some questions about it to put that worry into context, come up with anything I can do about it. Sometimes there will be, sometimes there won't, but just giving it a bit of time. And then after that, it loses all its power and it doesn't rattle around in my brain anymore because it feels kind of resolved. So the alternative to that would be to try to just suppress it or push it out or replace it with something positive. And all those things can work as well. But for me, at least, spending a couple of minutes going, all right, fine, you're here. Let's focus on it. Let's deal with it and let's get it out the way really robs the worry of its power and gets it out of my mind and frees me up to think about more positive things.
Brain hack number 6 is visualization. Now, this does sound a bit woo-woo. I can understand, if you're going, oh, God, here we go. But listen, it's not just for hippies. Olympic athletes use visualization techniques. And it's not just a few of them. It's a common practice. It's what they're taught to do. They visualize winning. They visualize being successful. And if it's good enough for Olympic athletes, then it's good enough for all of us. Now, I don't spend my day in a daydream thinking about the future. But from time to time, I will think about the future. I'll think about where we're going. And actually, I get so real with it in my head that I get excited and motivated. And then whatever's happening that day, if it's not as pleasant or enjoyable, feels insignificant. Because a big goal, a big vision that excites you and that motivates you makes the day-to-day feel very small and insignificant. So if you have any challenges or problems that day and they're feeling quite big, think bigger. Think about things that are much bigger, where this is going, why you're doing it, what's motivating you. And better still, visualize it. Then that little day-to-day feels small. Be bigger than your problems. And a way to do that is think big. Use your visualization, visualize, and think about what you want. Yes, some people will use vision boards and things like that. And if that works for you, great. If that's something you're not comfortable with, you don't have to do it. But think about what you want. You can just drift through life. It's quite easy to do. So many people do it. But if you think about what's important to you, and it doesn't have to be flash cars and flash houses. It can be family situations. It can be things that are really important to you and charity and stuff like that. But whatever it is, visualize it. And those bigger, more important things to you will make the things that you're dealing with today feel much smaller.
And finally, brain hack number 7, a really simple one, but very powerful. Taking us back to habits again, is tracking those habits to make sure that you get them done even when you don't want to. So when you're trying to form new habits, it's really important to do them every day and really establish it. Now, there's lots of different studies about how long it takes to form a habit, but they all converge at around about 2 months. So you're looking at 2 months of effort doing something every day before it then becomes automatic and you don't have to think about it anymore. But if you fail to do that and you only really do it every second or third day, you'll never get it to that point where it becomes automatic. So how do you make sure you do it every day? Well, some days it'll be easy and you'll want to, and that's fine. Some days you won't want to. But if you track it every single day, whether it's on a piece of paper or an app, and you can see each day marked off with a cross or a tick or something like that, then you're going to feel highly motivated not to break that chain. So you might really not feel like meditating right now or going for a run. But if you know that you'll break that chain and you won't be able to tick that day off, it'll break your streak, then you'll find that you push through and get it done. And like I said, it might only seem like one day. Does it really matter? But it does. Because if you can just get through that initial period, you can just make it stick, then after that, you're going to have all the benefits with none of the effort.
So it may seem odd, the property podcast, and we've not really talked about property at all today. But next week, as Rob's touched on already, you're going to hear some pretty brutal truths about property investment and at times how difficult it can be. And it's not just property that can be difficult at times. Life will be difficult at times. No one is immune from that. At some point, we will go through adversity and some days will be more difficult than others. But you can have more better days and make the less enjoyable parts condensed by following these hacks. It really does make a difference. These are things that we do. So even if you just try, a handful of them and introduce them into your life, these hacks will be a game changer. Not only will you be more successful in property, you'll be more successful in life.
Already today, we've given you lots of different techniques that you can go away and use to make a difference. But we want to fit in a little bit more. That's why we have the Hub Extra part of the show, where we give you a resource, a tip, a tool, something that's going to make your life that little bit better. And it gets backed up by the Hub Extra email, now revamped and looking beautiful, that you get every Friday morning if you're a Property Hub member. And Rob, today for Hub Extra, we have a tool that goes really nicely with what we've just been talking about.
It does. It's an app that you can download now for free. It's called Strides. That's Strides, Strides. And it's a habit tracking app. So very much related to what we've discussed. Now, quite embarrassingly, I've not got into the habit of using it yet, but I have only recently downloaded it. The reason why I'm recommending it is because obviously it links to this show, but there are other habit apps out there. But this one looks really clean on the interface. It looks like it's something that's simple to use. So there are others out there. Go and find one that suits you. But if you are looking for a habit tracker app to get into these habits and start making a difference to your life, this week's Hub Extra is one to check out. And make sure you're checking out the Hub Extra emails. They've recently had a revamp and they are looking amazing. The amount of people reading that now since it's been revamped is incredible. So well done to the team that puts that together every week. If you don't know what we're talking about, we'll sign up to the Property Hub, which is free. And every Friday, you will get an email with what we think are the most important things you need to know about the world of property each week. Loads of value. It's Hub Extra with extra every single Friday in your inbox.
Well, hopefully we have successfully rewired your brain, and we'll call that a day for a week. I reckon that's not a bad result. Let us know what you thought of this episode, and let us know what you'd like to cover us in future. You'll find us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at Property Hub UK. If you've got any brain hacks that you use, let us know. We'd love to hear them. We can always be improving all the time. And by now, hopefully you're in the habit of listening, so I don't need to remind you. But just in case, make sure you join us again for Ask Rob and Rob on Tuesday. So until then, have a great week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.